Oh, shit. Now it doesn't seem to be working. Those of you on YouTube, can you actually see or hear me? People on Rumble, I think, can. Okay, now it's collating the number of viewers. Just a sec here. I've got a technical difficulty here of some unknown sort. Okay, now it's working. Now people can see and hear me. Oh, today YouTube decided to glitch out. Well, shit. Anyway, we've got a lot of news to cover. And the first one I did talk about earlier, which is that a federal agency chargeable tax and gun purchase case against Hunter Biden. Unfortunately, as I pointed out earlier today, this is not the Biden family crime scandal that we actually care about, or at least I myself. I don't care that Hunter Biden may have, allegedly, falsified material on a form to get a gun. I don't think there should be any form anyway, so I'll give him a pass on that. I don't care that he solicits prostitutes, that he smokes crack. Those things don't bother me. Well, I mean, they do to an extent because of the circumstances, and he's a sleazebag, but I don't think that someone should be in jail for having a little bit of crack or hiring a prostitute. I also don't care about tax fraud, at least on the level that they're alleging here. What I care about more is the major fraud that potentially Hunter Biden was involved in, specifically because his daddy at the time was the VP. That bothers me. That as a taxpayer, as someone who has to pony up huge amounts of money to Uncle Sam to go blow people up in the third world, which is what most of it goes towards. It's certainly not to help anyone in U.S. society. We're sending billions to Ukraine while there are people sleeping under overpasses in Los Angeles at the moment. As a taxpayer and as a U.S. citizen, that's what I care about. I care about fraud on a larger level, business fraud involving potentially hundreds of millions involving the Biden family. That's meaningful. And I definitely care about the quid pro quo aspect. That's not mentioned here, though. This, in my opinion, is their way of trying to present themselves as unbiased. So they go after Hunter Biden for relatively minor crimes. The gun part probably won't even be prosecuted. Lower down on this article, it points out that about half of these cases are even ever prosecuted. They'll probably let him go on that. They probably won't bring charges. They'll probably go after him for the tax fraud. So you're talking restitution from the extremely wealthy Biden family. Well, they can pay that off really, really easily because of all the quid pro quo money that they've got. It's in hundreds of millions of dollars range potentially. There's no big problem here. Biden doesn't even need to pardon him. If he gets any punishment at all, it'll be restitution, community service. He has to probation or something like that. That's what'll end up happening. You've got meaningful crimes involving Joe Biden, which is what is meaningful to the average taxpayer. He's an actual elected official through Hunter Biden. So I see this as nothing more than a cover. And the fact is that the Washington Post is claiming that somebody leaked details of this particular case. The fact that they have a case actually against him that they think they can go forward with, pending, of course, the DA in Delaware making a decision about whether to prosecute at all. We have to take that with a grain of salt, number one. It's the Washington Post. They do this all the time. Number two, it has nothing to do with Joe Biden. But we've got material from his laptop that was covered up by the FBI for political reasons, showing that there was a clear quid pro quo involving Joe Biden, elected official, VP at the time, second in command of the entire country behind Obama, was involved with business deals where he claims he never met with individuals that he clearly did. We have photographic evidence of this. We have emails setting things up from Hunter Biden. He's the fall guy. He's the intermediary for the entire Biden crime industry. And he gets charged with something relatively minor. This happens all the time in mafioso circles. The capo takes the fall, goes to a low security facility for a couple years, gets out, gets a million big ones for staying silent effectively. So yeah, Hunter Biden may actually go to jail. It's unlikely, though. He'll probably just pay a fine. But it's still a bombshell. It means that they do have evidence against him. It's not evidence of the crimes that we actually give a damn about. Next news story. And of course, I covered this as well earlier today. This is a major one here. Biden pardons marijuana offenses and calls for review of federal law. The president will also be urging governors to do the same for cases regarding state offenses of civil possession of marijuana. They mean simple possession, by the way. I have a feeling that's a typo. Here's the problem. The number of people in federal prison for simple possession charges regarding marijuana is in the couple hundred range. That's all the people that you're pardoning that are currently incarcerated, and a few thousand others that have been previously incarcerated. Many of them have other charges against them, but this will get them a time reduction. In some cases, they'll go free. Now, I support that. I just think that this is massively minuscule compared to the actual problem. It only addresses marijuana, it only addresses federal incarceration, and it only addresses simple possession. But why should anything else regarding drugs be illegal? Some people face trafficking charges because they went across state lines with a little green bag, felony charges. Some people, they get hit with intent to sell because they had 1.5 ounces of marijuana because they didn't sell the other half yet. The drug war should end entirely. And where is Biden, by the way? Where was he months ago when the DEA, which is under his control in the executive capacity, said, no, we're not rescheduling marijuana and we're not descheduling marijuana. It's still the devil's lettuce to us. Where was he? He didn't complain about it. His DEA made that decision and he didn't have dick to say about it. Why didn't Biden do this at the beginning of his presidency? I mean, if you're going to use your pardon power, you could have done it on day one. It really would have wowed the leftoids, by the way. They would have loved it anyway. The reason why they waited until now is because they want it to be a midterm issue. They want some weedhead leftoids who otherwise would say, well, fuck the Democratic Party. They're not doing enough for us, to vote for them because they like bubbly. They like weed. That's basically the only point. I would point out that this is even minuscule compared to something that Donald Trump actually supported and signed into law during his presidency in 2018, which is the First Step Act, a mass decarceration program which reformed the federal system consistently and considerably. This won't even do as much as that. And that was panned at the time by parts of the left. They're like, well, he's a handful of people really, really conditionally may be released from prison or have their sentences reduced. This is not enough. And by the way, I agree with that sentiment. Great idea. Doesn't go far enough, although it is novel that a GOP president was proposing actually pushing it through. Now we've got a Democratic president who is being called Dank Biden, which is an astroturfed meme. All of those memes were created before the announcement by the DNC, just to be clear. Being called Dank Biden because a few hundred people will be let out of federal prison. Low security facilities where they were going to spend a few years at most anyway. It's not really meaningful. You can pressure the states all you want. I would point out that Obama himself, and Obama being more progressive than Joe Biden on this particular issue especially, was still raiding Montana medical marijuana dispensaries for years after they legalized medical marijuana. You may remember that. And got panned for it. And it wasn't until the leftoids, the pink-haired people said, stop, grandma's got cancer and she just wants some marijuana to smoke, which I sympathize with. I don't think it should be a problem. Little old ladies generally are not a threat to society, even if you get them loaded. Not even just on marijuana, give them fentanyl. If they don't die, they still won't be a threat because they're little old ladies. Cancer patients and shit like that. He got panned for it. And finally, after several years, he went back and said, okay, we're going to stop raiding the dispensaries. We're going to stop taking all of your weed away. And then the agents will smoke it in your name. They have to keep you safe from the devil's lettuce. Kamek not showing on Rumble. Yes, we are indeed live on Rumble. I already checked. I'm not your buddy, guy. Unpopular opinion, but as a Canadian, I'm now against weed legalization. I have seen it make people more accepting of authoritarianism and fascism in Canada. I would disagree, as someone who did smoke weed fairly regularly for several years. It never made me more passive. It certainly never made me more accepting of authoritarianism. Over that period, I started becoming a libertarian. Cyber Beep. Hi, Sticks. Hope you and the family are well. Recently, ATF has had their ability to regulate frames and receivers taken away. Seems like gun laws aren't long for the world. Haven't researched it fully yet. Yeah, I'll be talking about New York's gun laws, actually, later in this very stream. But no, I am indeed live on Rumble. Now, I can vouch for that because I can literally see myself. There's 700 people watching on there. Again, the numbers keep rising dramatically on Rumble as far as live streams go. If you're not following me on Rumble or at least some new tech site, by the way, remember everyone on YouTube, you are missing out on a video each day that I do exclusively on other sites. You should follow me on BitChute, on Rumble, on Minds, on Odyssey. It doesn't matter. All of them or one of them. You will get that extra video. They tend to be more spicy than the ones I'm allowed to put up on YouTube anyway. Links in the description, of course, to those sites. By the way, link pinned at the top of chat on YouTube and in the description on both platforms, YouTube and Rumble. If you want to get in on the Pixel Planet fun, we are still repairing. Right now, I think the leader of Greece is angry at me over the deal that I struck with Turkey, but I'm like, I'll address that separately. Jesus Christ, you know, it's literally a game about pixeling things in. Nathan Heim, problem with pot is it's a gateway drug to not trusting the government. Yeah, exactly. Once you realize that the government spent 100 years demonizing weed and then you smoke it and you realize, oh, that was kind of fun. You spend a couple of hours giggling maybe. You realize that the government's full of shit and doesn't know what it's talking about. Most people, however, do not move on to other substances. Just to be clear, it's not a gateway to anything other than maybe eating junk food. I used psychedelics that were actually powerful, like LSD, unlike marijuana, which is not a powerful drug. Had a great time doing it, by the way, for spiritual reasons. Blatantly violating U.S. drug law. Oh, my God. Thank goodness the statute of limitations expired on that long ago. I went sober more than a decade ago. Just to be clear, I didn't look back either because it's like, well, I gleaned all of the wisdom I could from LSD and psilocybin and shit. And yeah, maybe I should take it easy now. Didn't help that I had a near fatal overdose. Otherwise, I'd probably be smoking weed on my live streams, just to be clear. Yeah. Weed doesn't make people authoritarian. Bullshit. Quite the opposite. The Grizzly. Kamala's car crashed because the Secret Service got into the thousands of wine boxes she has stashed in it. I imagine there's some champagne in the back of the VP's SUV in the motorcade. I wouldn't even, I mean, I say that seriously. I wouldn't be surprised if she does literally have that. Dave Minky, Sticks, I need a presidential pardon for my addiction to your live stream. Texas P12, you should look at Oregon's governor race. I'll be looking at lots and lots of polls. Probably in another week or so, every live stream will contain a midterm poll analysis component. We're going to start getting a lot more of them once we're about a month out from the midterm election. I'm just hoping for something from Alaska. When's the last time they did a fucking poll there? Between who's it, Shabaka and Murkowski, and then there's Palin still involved with that race. You know, TJ Mars, Carpo, Joe Biden, probably. Joe Biden, come on, man. Got to get me that marijuana. Meanwhile, the link after that, so that's the third link that you're seeing if you're looking in the description. That's an old Washington Free Beacon article from 2020 that has to do with weed incarceration. Take a look at that and see if it lines up with Joe Biden having done anything particularly monumental. Next news story. Taiwan will treat Chinese military flights into its airspace as a first strike, defense minister says. Chinese fighter jets or drones that intrude into Taiwan's territorial airspace will be regarded as first strike, he warned Wednesday, as the island seeks to step up defenses in response to Beijing's military pressure. Defense Minister Xiu Qiusheng, which I'm probably mispronouncing, my apologies, made the remarks while addressing lawmakers on the threats posed by China's recent spate of escalatory measures, which has seen Chinese warplanes and drones fly near to the self-governing island. This is, by the way, fairly standard. Normally, you know, you're not supposed to invade the air or nautical space of other countries near you. I would note that China does it brazenly against Vietnamese fishing vessels, against military ships as well in some circumstances from the Philippines. China does it all the time and nobody really responds because they're used to the bullying and the harassment. For Taiwan to do this, of course, it needs probably a more beefy air defense in order to be able to do much. China does have a significant superiority when it comes to air and sea as far as the number of vessels, the number of planes. As far as the technology, Taiwan can hold its own. I don't understand why people don't push for a martialized society in Taiwan. Just arm everyone. Let them get guns. Let them get AR-15s. You know, even the civvy versions, they'll still do damage against an invading army. Let there be a rifle behind every blade of grass, and the Chinese will never invade because they'd have to exact mass casualties to do so, both on their side and the civilians on the opposing side, because all of them would be acting as partisans, and then they would get massive amounts of condemnation. Hell, the Russians might not stand behind them. But they don't want to do that. It would make the U.S. a lot of money, and it would solve a problem. Governments aren't there to solve problems. They're there to perpetuate problems as long as possible so that their corporate partners can make money. I'm not your buddy, guy. Not BS. Look at Canada's voting records and weed use. Well, that's a correlation does not imply causation, I think, in that sense. Roscoe P. Coltrane. The agent heard one too many cackles and offed himself. Yeah, I'm thinking, why did the Kamala SUV crash in the first place? They immediately came out, tried to cover it up and blame mechanical failure, then said in like an hour later, they're like, oh, no, it wasn't mechanical failure. Whoops. Why did they rush to blame it on that, I wonder? I smell a cover-up. We won't get any answers from the legacy media because they won't ask any questions, though. Albert Hurd, my brother JJ and I respect you very much. Keep fighting the good fight. My battle mage is doing well. Thanks for advice. Excellent. BW, I would be the one to ask this. How do you think this will affect the midterms? I know you have to wait for polls to know for sure, but what affects the midterms? Taiwan? I don't think that that'll affect the midterms at all. As far as Biden's weed grift, if that's what you mean, I don't think that it has any impact at all. A handful of leftoids that were already ready to vote largely Democrat if they actually get to the polls will get to the polls in larger numbers. That's not going to matter, though, because in the states where this is still a lingering issue, the Republicans have a massive superiority. So I don't understand exactly who he's trying to wine and dine. I just understand that that's what he's attempting to do. E100 Omega 123, narrativebusters.org, nuke the narrative, debunk Dem talking points, media lies, and the party switch myth. 3 essays, all free to view. Don Grimes, thank you for being a truth sayer. Kitty, what are you doing there? You are crazy. De heckapoose. Sal the hamster over on Rumble. Sticks, did you hear that New York CCIA laws got enjoined yesterday? Looking forward to the temper tantrums. Hashtag write in Larry Sharp. Yes, we will be turning to that. First, though, we got to turn to the Fifth Circuit decision. Biden scolds MAGA Republicans after Fifth Circuit Court strikes down DACA, orders no new applicants. Yeah, so DACA is upheld as far as the current people that are under it. They can renew, they can stay in the country. DACA's ruled unconstitutional, but somehow it's still upheld. It's kind of a waffling, it's a fence-sitting approach by the Fifth Circuit. I guess they didn't want to cause mass chaos by saying, yeah, by the way, those 500,000 or so people that are under the DREAM Act, you have no choice but to deport them immediately because they can't have that special status. And we know who they are because they've all got jobs and shit like that. And some of them you can't deport because they got family members now. They've had kids or whatever, or they got married. But everyone else has to go. I think they didn't want to make it a political issue. And so they're hoping that at some point, Congress will solve the problem. Let me read this out verbatim really quickly. In a statement, the president called the decision unlawful and urged Congress to make permanent legislative protections to help more than 600,000 immigrants currently protected by DACA. Yes, that's what they should have been doing. Just like with Roe v. Wade, they all scramble to pass laws codifying abortion legality after Roe ends, despite the fact that they knew that the Dobbs decision was forthcoming for more than a year. Much like with this, you knew that this decision was going to be made. It was going to be made by a court that was unlikely to uphold the legality of DACA, and you did nothing. If that requires negotiating with the evil Republicans, that's literally what they are elected to do. Form a majority, get your simple majority in the House. You've got that because it's run by Democrats. Get a filibuster-proof majority in the Senate. You'll have to negotiate with the neocons to do that. They'll want, they'll throw peanuts at the border wall or something like that. And you can get 99% of your way because Romney's not going to stand in your way. Lindsey Graham's not going to stand in your way. Fucking Rubio is not going to stand in your way. Get them aboard, wine and dine them, promise them some pork barrel kickbacks, and then do a road to legal status for the DACA recipients. You've had years to do this. You've had incarnations of Congress where you controlled the House and the Senate steadily enough to be able to make it work, and you never did anything about it. Biden is correct on that proposition, but to call the decision unlawful is quite wrong. The Supreme Court can hear the case, but until then, the precedent is set by the Fifth Circuit. It's unlawful to uphold DACA. That's what they decided. Biden appears to believe that he is a judicial branch member. He is not, thankfully. It's very good that he's just the puppet of the executive branch instead. Can do less damage. Hunter Wadley, how do you feel about Victor in the Masters and Kelly debate? Oh, you mean the moderator? I don't care about that. Doc Holliday, poor Sticks. He hates God because his prayers failed to stop the pig squealing lessons from his uncle in the basement. Those flashbacks must be horrible. Interesting. You've got a vivid imagination. A little bit of a warped one. Sparky, the U.S. State Department heavily backs Lula, who has been pro-BRICS for president of Brazil, as if he were Juan Guaido. Did they get to him? Yeah. Well, they make money from BRICS. All of these people and their investment buddies make money from BRICS existing. They don't want the Eastern Bloc to falter. They just want to have perpetual proxy wars that they can parasitize off of. Makes for good business. They make billions doing that. Aussie's Robots, morning Sticks off topic. Why isn't the theory that COVID was designed to target geriatrics as a form of genocide investigated by both authorities and journalists? People should be rioting for answers. That's because they don't want to look into it because the answer is already set in stone. They know that that's what it was designed for. And they don't want to uncover the fact that a significant proportion of all the powers that be in the world participated in killing off a bunch of old and sick people in order to solve the problem of the demographic time bomb in China and elsewhere. Caleb Arbour, let's say 24 goes good. What's stopping 28 from being just like 2020? The fact that defortification is occurring at the local and state level in numerous places. And by the way, you can thank Steve Bannon largely for that. Fucking Rubio, I ain't gonna stand in your way. Hunter Wadley, the libertarian in the debate. Oh, I thought you meant the moderator. I have no thoughts about that because currently the Libertarian Party, while repaired and doing a lot better than before, is not going to make inroads in such an election. The inroads that were made back in 2016 and to an extent 2018 were made specifically because of a highly politicized climate. There's a lot of depoliticization right now on the economy, which is the main issue of the election. Jose Leva sent $1. No comment, thank you. Albin Jansen, are you going to do any Christian Death or Bauhaus covers? I'd like to do Christian Death. Roz Williams is cool. It's got to be Christian Death with Roz, or it's not really Christian Death. I can do that sometime. Silky Johnson, can the Dems federalize abortion post-Dobbs since the SCOTUS kicked it back to the states? If they tried, would it bring about a 10th Amendment case in SCOTUS? Yes, it would. That's the other problem for the Democrats on that. Cindy Drellick, is the outcome of the midterms or eventually the 24 elections determining whether you come back to the states? We have lots of rural land here still in New Hampshire. Thoughts on the Free State Project here? I am looking into New Hampshire, but that has nothing to do with where I am at any given time. Vermont, New Hampshire, the Netherlands, fucking Alaska, doesn't really make any difference. I would say that stopping the Biden admin from collapsing the U.S. economy further would probably be helpful. But because my income's denominated in dollars anyway, because it's through like Amazon and Google and shit, it doesn't matter so much, I guess, where I am physically. Nicholas H., have you tried DMT? It's great. I never did DMT like the actual extracted DMT. I did make ayahuasca once, but it wasn't, I didn't keep it down long enough. I got borderline sort of effects, audio hallucinations. It wasn't that great, though, because it's called the Purga for a reason. It tastes like battery acid. Just so that everyone out there is aware, you might want to just freebase the fucking DMT. Or just get salvia. Redo, thanks for starting my spiritual journey. I changed. It's always a good thing. Next news story. Biden admin looks to scale down Venezuela sanctions, allowing more pumping of oil rated among world's dirtiest. Yes, indeed. Joe Biden failed so miserably with OPEC that he wants to scale back sanctions on a self-avowedly socialist nation in South America that pumps out a crappy product that has to be extra refined just in order to make up the difference. Meanwhile, the U.S. has plenty of oil and natural gas. It's just sitting there in the ground. You're not allowed to extract that. even though it's far cleaner. It makes U.S. jobs. It makes Americans a lot of money. And it's secure. You don't have to ship it across the ocean. You don't have to ship it across through a pipeline or anything like that. It's right in the United States to begin with. We were energy independent a few years ago. Biden has done the unthinkable, which is he's become one of the only people in modern history that has deliberately sabotaged the nation's own economy to make political points, to gain votes among environmental nuts who don't even understand environmentalism. I would suggest these people go all in on coal and oil and gas and then go plant a couple of trees. But they're fucking lazy NIMBYists, so they're not going to be doing that. The Southern V. What's up, Sticks? Hope you have a great day. Money, so you won't leave to get milk. I mean, just imagine how fucked up your economy has to be when you're begging the Venezuelans for more oil and saying, I don't think they need those sanctions so much anymore. Yeah, their inflation rate is still like 10,000% or something. Yeah, they're still jailing dissidents. Yeah, they're still disarming their own population. I'm sure Biden probably supports that, though, so that's okay. Yeah, they're still doing crazy shit all the time. There's still oil floating around on that giant lake there, Maracaibo, I think it's called, or something like that. Their rigs are all fucked up, but we're going to get oil from them anyway because OPEC is cutting production. A dark winter is ahead if we don't give these commies their money. We've got oil in the ground in the United States. It's called Texas. It's called Alaska. At this point, the Dakotas. Hell, there's oil all over the goddamn place. Way more than we thought 10 years ago. Sparky. Lula was pro-Russia was my point, not BRICS. Well, I mean, Russia's part of BRICS. I should have been more direct. Also, Juan Guaido would be a U.S. Venezuela puppet president. I do find it funny that the people that are talking about how we need a nuclear war with Russia are backing one of Russia's favorite individuals in that race. You are correct. It is funny. Ellie Ann Iceland. It's fun to pixel in New Zealand. Yeah, apparently we control a huge chunk of New Zealand over in Pixel Planet too. Mr. Wonderful. Watch Trump back in the 2016 primaries and Hillary debates today. That guy is fucking hilarious and I miss him. You'll probably get him back fairly soon, which is the good news. Silver Tree Consortium over on Rumble. Screw YouTube. I'm here until Rackets gets restored. I think you mean Ricada. Might stay on Rumble out of spite. Yeah, he's got a huge Rumble audience. We've got 1,200 people watching right now, by the way. We've got over 4,000 people watching on both platforms total. Peyton Walter, the headline, Hunter Biden is in deep doo-doo alone is worth at least $49.99. Yeah, I do like to see it. The problem is that the doo-doo that he's in is the wrong pile. He stepped in the pile that hasn't yet fermented into a goddamn oil slick. The hope, of course, is that you implicate Joe Biden in the crime, in the problems. Quid pro Joe is a term for a reason. You've got fraud. You've got dirty business dealings. You've got a literal quid pro quo violating the Hatch Act, et cetera, et cetera. Biden should be called in to testify, but he's a sitting president. Well, I mean, he's technically just a steward, but he's officially called the sitting president, so they can't do anything to him. So instead, they'll give Hunter Biden a slap on the wrist, and then they'll quietly shoo the Hunter Biden laptop story to the side. You watch and see. Next news story. Britain could face forced power cuts this winter, National Grid warns. Yes, apparently we're talking about a situation in which for 3 hours every day, in midwinter, by the way. So, just to be clear, the British Isles get a little bit cold in the winter, even a little bit colder than here in the Netherlands. And it already gets uncomfortably chilly when you factor in the fucking wind chill. Just trust me or anyone else that's lived in the general Amsterdam area. Really nice in the summer. I think that everything from between November and March can fuck itself. I'm from Rutland. I'm from the U.S. version of Siberia, where you might have 4 feet of snow on the ground at any given time. So take it to the fucking bank. We may be entering a situation in which, because of the U.S. and Western world's failed energy policies, people in one of the most developed countries in the world have to go without electricity for 3 hours a day in the middle of winter. Oh, I wonder how many pensioners will die this season. They're always warning about that anyway. And saying, well, we had this cold snap and we had to bury 200 corpses because people died. And it's like, can't you fucking get anything straight? You're the United Kingdom. You're a first world, highly industrialized nation with, as far as for your population and land area, a very, very large economy. And you can't secure enough energy. Just despite the Russians, you're going to let British people die over the winter. God, you bring back the coal power plants or something. Yeah, people might die in the smog like they did back in, what was it, the 60s or 70s. I bet it'll be less people than will die of the cold when you shut off their electricity in the middle of winter. What are they supposed to do? You got rid of all the forests in your country, so they're not going to be burning wood unless they're out in the middle of nowhere, next to what they call it, a copse or something like that. Then they can go out and illegally harvest wood. They have to get their wood harvesting license in order to do that. Core blimey, mate. You got your fireplace license? Have you got your match license? Your lighter license? Basically the way Britain works, it appears. Sparky, sounds like Hunter is a classic limited hangout. Yeah. I'm shaking my head at how a country like the UK, it's small, dense, highly urbanized, very advanced, lots of industry. You can't even afford, just get liquefied natural gas from the United States and put in more gas lines or something. Why the fuck do you need to cut people's power in the middle of winter? And what time of day are you going to do this? In the middle of the night when it's coldest, or the middle of the day when a lot of people have things off anyway because they're at work? Which one are you going to do? I don't even know if it explains that in this fucking article. They're talking about French power and stuff. A shortage of gas in Europe, as well as maintenance issues with several French nuclear power plants, have raised the risk Britain could be unable to secure the gas it needs or the imports of electricity it typically receives from countries such as France, Belgium, and the Netherlands. I didn't know that the Netherlands exported electricity to Great Britain, but now I know. What are you doing? Build a couple extra nuke plants or something. You won't have this problem. Oh, wait, that's right. The environmental nuts hate nuclear energy for some reason. Sparky, Bolsonaro is pro-Russia, pro-BRICS too. Yeah, Brazil leans towards that because it's literally in BRICS. We've got Joker1 on Rumble. You are buffering like Fetterman. Oh, the video's having buffering issues on Rumble? My apologies, everyone. I didn't know that. Maybe it's on your end. Is your bandwidth all fucked up or something? I don't see any problem. Let me look at it right now on my end. Go live. Yeah, it doesn't seem to really be buffering on my end. It's not buffering at all on my end, and it's in HD, so... It might be on your end, dude. There might be is your Wi-Fi fucked? It's possible. Next news story. Biden's Delaware visitors shrouded in mystery as Secret Service insists no records exist. That's right. Joe Biden, who spends about 1/3 of his fucking presidency in Delaware, in Rehoboth Beach, as opposed to the White House, there is no visitors log. We have no idea who he's talking to when he's there. Why am I not diggly goddamn surprised? It'd be funny if one of his neighbors decided to put up a security camera out front so that you could see the limos arriving and see, like, is it a Saudi sheik? Is it Vladimir Putin? Is it Liz Truss? Who's going over for tea and crumpets with Hunter and his daddy today to do backroom business deals? And that is probably what is happening, just to be clear. Washington, the Secret Service says it checked again and still can't find any records that identify visitors to President Biden's Delaware residences. I think that's a security lapse, just saying. And where he has spent roughly 1/4 of his presidency outraging Republicans and prompting one congressman to say the stonewalling and gaslighting must stop. The agency made the baffling claim in its denial of a Freedom of Information Act appeal from the Post. Secret Service Deputy Director Ferron Paramore wrote in a letter dated September 27th that the agency conducted an additional search of relevant program offices for potentially responsive records. The search also produced no responsive records, Paramore wrote. Accordingly, your appeal is denied. So we have no exact clue about who Biden is inviting into his home when he's there in Delaware. Why don't we trace, look at when he's in Delaware, and then trace like flight records from other countries. I bet anything that you'll find that some of them line up perfectly. Maybe a cartel member here, a foreign dignitary there, a French investor, maybe a Ukrainian investor, hell, maybe a Russian oligarch. Who knows? Biden doesn't give a shit as long as you're paying him money or giving him some sort of political favor. One hand will wash the other, of course. If the Russians were to pay Joe Biden enough, tomorrow he would condemn Zelensky as a coward and refuse to send further aid to Ukraine. Just to be clear about him knowing what side of the toast is buttered. The claim that there are no visitor logs for President Biden's Delaware residence is a bunch of malarkey, Comer told the Post. That's James Comer, he's a representative. I actually disagree. I think that it's entirely likely that there's no visitor's log. He just waves them in, he takes the bundle of cash, and then he waves them back out after a brief conversation. Notice that if Trump were to do something like this, it would have been a big fucking problem. It would be front page news. Most of you probably are only hearing about this for the first time from me today. It's me. No fracking equals no gas in the USA. Well, we'd still have gas. We just it would be a lot more expensive and we'd have less of it. Frack, baby, frack. Except in Oklahoma. They had some earthquake issues because of that, supposedly. Jack's regret. The left knows Green Deal backfired. They are waiting for someone to fix it so they can blame the fixer. Blaming others is what they do best. Clank. Yeah, I think that Biden's just trying to keep the economy on inflationary life support to let it collapse when the next administration comes in too. Just saying. Alien baby, I'm about to be rich. Got an email about sending a foreign dignitary $400 only to get $400 million back. Normally, this is an obvious scam, but it's from Joe Biden and so has credibility. Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't believe the sort of weird shit these people get up to. Sleaze bags, every single one of them. Joker 1 on Rumble. The buffering was momentary. Sigil Stone 17 on Rumble. I bet Europe wouldn't have energy problems if they bothered solving their illegal migrant problem. YouTube literally won't let me send superchats to you anymore. It gives an unlisted error code. That's interesting. That's the first I've heard of it, and thank you for telling me. Solving that crisis would help because you'd have less demand for the energy. Joker 1, designing one's energy policy based on the whiny rants of a goofy Swedish teenage high school dropout. What could go wrong? Yeah, or Al Gore, the perpetual loser who claimed that he invented the internet, which he did not. Princess, gas update, up 20 cents from $3.36 from $3.16 in South Alabama in a few days. Yeah, I'm getting more and more people saying that the gas prices are beginning to rise again. I think some of it's speculation ahead of the OPEC cut, because that wouldn't actually affect the supply immediately. It takes a while. There's lag involved. It's not looking good for the economy throughout the winter in the U.S. or anywhere else in the world. Hell, I don't know if there's a nation in the world right now that's expected to really grow over the next year or so. Next news story. This is someone brought this up earlier. Federal judge halts key parts of New York's new gun law. After the Bruen decision, when they were told, no, you're not allowed to apply a litmus test for a concealed carry permit, you have to issue the permit. What does New York do? It issues a massive new law that attempts to restrict guns even further than the old law that was literally overruled as unconstitutional under Bruen by SCOTUS. Albany, New York. A federal judge halted key provisions Thursday of New York's latest attempt to restrict who can carry a handgun in public and where firearms can be brought, saying multiple parts of the law the state passed this year are unconstitutional, which was predicted, you will remember, by me and pretty much anyone else that read the Bruen decision. U.S. District Judge Glenn Suddaby focused on multiple parts of the law, saying licensing requirements, like a rule requiring applicants to turn over info about their social media accounts, went too far. Simply stated, instead of moving towards becoming a shall-issue jurisdiction, New York State has further entrenched itself as a shall-not-issue jurisdiction. And by doing so, it has further reduced a first-class constitutional right to bear arms in public for self-defense into a mere request, wrote Suddaby, who sits in Syracuse. The ruling would keep restrictions in place that bar firearms from being carried into schools, government buildings, and places of worship. I'm not sure why places of worship are listed alongside schools and government buildings, but we'll get past that. But the judge said the state couldn't ban guns from other sensitive locations such as Times Square. So New York's attempt to force businesses to opt out by putting up a "you can bring a gun in here" sign, that's gone. You can bring your gun to Times Square, so in public places, on the sidewalk, etc. You can have a firearm in vehicles, etc. It only retains it for areas that under federal law already tend to be gun-free. Now, the fact that you have gun-free government buildings and schools is not helpful. I consider it unconstitutional, generally speaking, as well, unless it happens to be a courthouse or something like that. As far as places of worship, again, I have no clue why that's being retained by the judge, and I oppose it. but it's definitely a start. The bulk of the law is now injuncted by this particular court. Thank goodness. It will fail. It will falter if it's appealed. New York will lose. And then they'll have to scratch their heads again about how to abuse people that want to defend themselves. It will also happen in New Jersey, just to be clear. They basically piggybacked off the New York State's new law. Let's see here. Mike the WAP00. What exactly was the context of the conversation where Al Gore was saying he invented the internet? Clank. I can't remember the exact context, but he did actually make that claim and had to walk it back, and it's hounded him ever since. Hound Dog. Oh, speak of the devil. The Hunter prosecution is controlled and meant to block and hamper future sincere prosecution. I agree completely. Give him a slap on the wrist. Say he did his time. Now you have to leave him alone. If you insist on investigating him further, you're bullying him for political reasons. It's a goddamn smokescreen attempt. Princess. Dyslexia up from 316 to 339, so 23 cents. Yeah. Yeah, the gas prices, according to most people that I've talked to, the gas prices are now inching upwards. It's not like as severe as it was before, but it is going up. And I think that it's speculation because of the OPEC cuts. Sparky, reminder, it's Vladimir Putin's birthday today. As a fearless leader of Clank Nation and a fellow world leader, how about wishing him a happy birthday? Well, I hope he's not happy. He invaded his neighboring country, and I don't support him. That being said, of course, I don't support brinksmanship and World War III either, so I don't think that the United States needs to get directly involved. Zelensky the other day was talking about preemptive strikes, but then he walked it back earlier today and said, no, I just meant sanctions. I just meant sanctions. How the fuck does a sanction stop a nuclear platform from operating, and what sanctions can we apply that we haven't already? Zelensky clearly was referring to targeted missile strikes the other day. He totally walked it back. Biden probably fucking personally called him up on the phone and said, hey, you're making things real goddamn difficult as far as giving you further aid because you're basically calling for nuclear war. Please walk it back. Look, people will gobble up the excuse because they gobble up anything you say because we've cast you off as a saint or a hero or something. Transylvania 90 in Canada, we've had 30 to 40 cents a gallon gas price hike. Yeah, it's not just the United States. You can't even just solely blame Joe Biden for it. He's just largely to blame. Next news story, Arizona Senate race debate. Democrat Mark Kelly and Republican Blake Masters clash over immigration, abortion. I watched part of this, and here's my take. This is almost a 50-50 race. Mark Kelly, which is the Democrat, has been leading, if only by a couple of points. And the lead has been narrowing anyway. If that velocity picks up at all, or if the debate impacts things at all, and I'll analyze it briefly in a second, or if there's voter turnout differentials, I think that Blake Masters will actually pull it off. That's an additional Senate seat for the GOP. That virtually guarantees the Democrats at the very least remain in a 50-50 struggle and don't retake the Senate fully. If the Republicans grab the seat, I would favor a +2 pickup in the Senate for the Republicans, not just +1 as I predicted last week. Still staying with 2 seats in the gubernatorial sense and 25 to 30 within the House of Representatives. I'm a little bit more generous towards the GOP on the House than some pollsters are. I think that looking at the debate, all of the significant linguistic kill shots, all of the significant charismatic moments, Trump-style debate moments were Blake Masters. There really isn't much for Mark Kelly there. He looked unprepared, and he did not do a good job. The problem is if you're in a 50-50 sum game where the opponent may have higher turnout anyway because of in some cases, Carrie Lake might carry him down ballot as well. Of course, she's running for the gubernatorial slot. She's also charismatic. If you get out charismaed by your opponent when you're in the lead, but it's basically a non-existent lead, it's like half a fucking point, that's really not a good time to fuck up at the debate now, is it? They should have prepared him better. I think that Blake Masters now has a 60% chance of winning, even though he has technically never been ahead in a poll. The Southern V, Hunter and Joe, that money green, what you want. Parlock 480. Do you think the West is the new Sodom and Gomorrah? No, I don't. I'm not hep to that biblical shit. Sparky, your use of neighboring country shows your sources to be legacy media. Have you sold out to the establishment? What happened to the old sticks? Well, I mean, Russia and Ukraine do share a border, just to be clear. Iron Age Media. Hey, Sticks, I recently set up a site to promote non-woke indie creators. Clankers might enjoy it. I'll also be on a drink with Crazy tonight to discuss. Clank. Okay, excellent. Non-woke indie creators. That's the kind that used to build sites like YouTube. Now people get banned for being indie. Joker 1 on Rumble. Is the Hunter Biden pending arrest a license to go after President Trump before the midterms? No, I don't think that they're connected. In my opinion, it's just to give him a slap on the wrist and then say that you're bullying him if you look further into his business dealings. And now we've got the final news story. This is an MSNBC post, so you expect it to be a little bit on the inane side. MSNBC, no, it was an incoherent post? Really? Who would have guessed? The artist formerly known as Kanye West seems to be seeking out a legacy as a racist hate monger. Let him have it via the Readout blog. Yes, Joy Reid is declaring that Kanye is an Oreo effectively here. As one black person to another, y'all are racist because you're not hip to the plantation mentality. How dare you have a White Lives Matter shirt on in order to sell more fucking shoes? Which is quite literally the only reason that he did it. He's good at branding. He's good at getting attention. He's massively wealthy and successful, and there's a goddamn reason for it. He knows how to stoke up a little bit of spiciness in other people. He's good at poking the bear, and he realizes, hey, all attention is good attention when you're branding shoes and albums and shit like that. By my literal shit, he could take a shit in the toilet, scoop it out, put into a jar, and probably make $1 million selling his own feces. I'm kind of surprised he hasn't done that yet. Maybe he should sell his bathwater. And he should partner with Belle Delphine or something like that, who's disappeared off the face of the earth after unwisely deciding that making 7 figures a year, not even getting nude, was somehow not enough for her. Who could have possibly predicted that? Anyway, Sparky, neighboring is a legacy media narrative keyword. Redix Pen. I don't know how to research this, but back when they did keep a visitor's log at Biden's Delaware home, there were reportedly a very large amount of medical staff, 18 in one weekend, if I remember. Yeah, well, I mean, they'll probably just, if they're confronted with that, they'll just say, well, that was because he was coordinating with people on the COVID response or something. I can imagine that's probably the case. He needs constant medical treatment. But I think it has more to do with the business dealings of his son. It has more to do with the dignitaries that randomly show up, the Saudi sheik and stuff like that. I mean, does he have a helipad in the backyard so they don't have to show their faces to the camera? They'll be behind a bunch of plane trees and shit like that landing. He probably does. You know, he's a rich bitch and he wants to get richer because he's old and corrupt and has nothing to lose. He doesn't care what happens. And his moron son will inherit that money mostly and use that for corrupt shit. He'll probably snort it all up his nose. He'll use up all of daddy's money snorting crack. Virgo Rising, as a libertarian who is pro-abortion, what's your take on child protective services? Does the government have the right to take your children for any reason? The government does have the right to defend children if their own NAP is being grossly violated. They should not have the right to take a child, for instance, if the parent simply smokes weed. The parent is found guilty of a misdemeanor offense. A parent does something that the state simply does not like but is not illegal. They have the wrong religious views. They have militaristic, you get to the point where it's almost like a red flag law for custody of your child. Those I oppose. But if you have solid evidence that a child is being sexually abused, physically abused, neglected, etc., that child has rights too. It's not all about parental rights. Same reason why I'm against circumcision, forced genital mutilation for males in the U.S. parlance. Yeah, the parents have their religious rights. That's fine. You practice Judaism, you practice Islam. You're a Christian doing it for cultural purposes because you don't understand the Bible. That's fine. But the child has not made that decision. It's a goddamn infant. They're a couple of days old, maybe. They're not consenting. Leave their penis alone. That's what I would say. I had a rant about that the other day. The Grizzly, if you could only play one game, what would it be? Fallout 4. Yeah. Some people will consider that to be cringy, but it's a good game. I just wish there were more aspects of RPG to it. Closer to Fallout 3 on that measure, and it would have been a perfect game. But they decided to sacrifice some of that in favor of simply making it sort of the RPG element in the missions gets trashed in order to have it more customizable, like weapons and shit. I mean, there's some good shit, but, you know, there were a few shortcomings. I did like the game very much, though. Hashtag free Rekieta Law. Yeah, he should not be banned in any way. Tyler McDonald, do you use any mods? Thoughts on New Vegas? New Vegas is fine, although it was a glitch fest. Yeah, I use a lot of mods on Fallout 4, including the unofficial patch that's available via Nexus. That really solves half the problems with the game right there. And then a bunch of mods related to factions. Armor Smith Extended is a big one. Touch of Green is a good mod. Because, of course, after a nuclear war 100, 200 years later, there will actually be living trees and things like that. You will have moss and grass. You just will have a lot of wreckage around and things of that nature. Yeah, Skyrim is good as well. GTA 79, smoke weed every day. Yeah, I used to do that back in the day. I haven't used marijuana in more than a decade. Save a lot of money by not doing so. Just to be clear. Sigilstone17 on Rumble. Artist formerly known as Kanye, equating Kanye to Prince is a goddamn travesty, an act of terrorism. Well, doesn't he go... I think he literally goes by Ye now, as opposed to Kanye. Or is it Ye or Ye? I don't fucking know, and I don't fucking care. I don't care about his music or his fucking shoes, which are overpriced. It's basically the crapple product of shoe lines, I suppose. But I really like the fact that he can antagonize people, trigger them. The fact that he sort of walks along his own path and doesn't really give a shit about convention, making him the odd man out, gets him the attention, and I admire that. He does a good job at it. Sparky, you've been victimized by 15 years of anti-Putin propaganda. Heal yourself and say, happy birthday, Putin. It's good diplomacy, unless you prefer war. Yeah, it's funny because there are some people that have that mentality, including in favor of the Ukrainians. Oh, you don't want to give Zelensky nuclear weapons? Well, you want the Russians to kill Ukrainians now, don't you? The shoe is on both feet in that particular war. By the way, please don't send any more super chats because I have to close up at some point here. Skycloud Rain, you hear Biden admin buying large amounts of anti-radiation meds? I believe the U.S. government does that yearly anyway for military purposes. I think that that's being taken out of context, if I recall. Princess, after hearing Putin's speech the other day, I tend to agree with him. We are being lied to. He also came out against the woke gender-affirming surgery and 100 genders thing. Yeah, but then again, everyone and their mother is really against that. It's just that in public places, you'll get dogpiled by the shrieking tiny minority if you point out basic reality. Jeff D. USMC, what do you think the Vegas odds are on Biden eventually saying the N-word when he gets agitated in front of the camera when he goes off script? His handlers must be nervous. Yeah, I mean, he dropped the F-bomb the other day and they immediately had to do damage control, claiming that it was some sort of great event. Oh, wow. Joe Biden said no one fucks with a Biden. How brave. How stunning. No, it was a senior moment. I agree with you. I would give 50-50 odds that eventually we get to hear him say something like that. We need to, someone needs to get black hecklers to go to his rallies, wearing like, BLM shirts and stuff and just to harass him endlessly. At some point, I bet eventually he'll snap. Parlock 480, my fear is Putin might think he is on a mission from God to destroy the satanic West. You're the victim of propaganda. When you start looking at a world leader like Putin, even if he's not duly elected, he's a little bit out there. He is not an insane actor. The same is true for the Ayatollah and Kim Jong-un, Saddam Hussein, Osama, all of these others. But the powers that be always want to cast them off as crazy because if you've determined that the other person is crazy, you can use more measures at your disposal to get rid of them. Because crazy people press the little red button. Crazy people blow up skyscrapers. Crazy people don't care who you are and just want to terrorize you. Once you've gotten the public to believe that a person is insane, you can do more about the fact that they're in power. If somebody right now were to take a shot at Putin and assassinate him, a lot of people in the West would cheer. They would think some great goal had been achieved. New oligarch would be same as the old oligarch, but they would cheer it. Even if the U.S. had literally just assassinated a former foreign leader of a nuclear state, they would cheer. They'd cheer as the mushroom clouds furled up around them and said, well, we showed him in the end, didn't we? These people are nuts. Jim Morrison. Regular is down 20 cents this week on the north coast of California. 6.79 per gallon. We are the future. Screw it, dude. Let's go bowling. Yeah, can't go up any further, I would think, in California, considering the prices and how high they already are. Hella Radio lives. The Biden weed issue is such an evident ploy that only the catatonically stoned should be buying it. Yeah, thankfully, it's to appeal to the catatonically stoned. So that's the whole point. Anyway, I think one more. Bara, Obama used the N-word in office. Yes, but he has the N-word pass because he happens to have the right skin color. Interesting double standard by the legacy media with regards to that, by the way. Anyway, I'm going to go offline. We hit almost 5,500 live cross-platform. That's what I'm talking about. You can take that link again in chat at the top if you're on YouTube, or in the description cross-platform, and go and help to pixel in on Pixel Planet. We're just repairing a chunk of griefing that was done by Turkey, but we've got a peace accord now. So right now we're just sort of tidying things up in the homeland, which is basically all of Africa at this point. Apparently the continent has been more or less ceded to clankdom. It's going to be a fun time. Sparky, don't be fooled. Putin is an anti-globalist hero. I would disagree with that. He's very much a globalist. He just wants a much larger slice of that globaloid pie. That's about all. Peace out.